All right. We are live and in effect here.
In effect.
Yes. I'm wondering, do we like this, the two screens here? Or like the two screens
Oh, right.
this way, or this?
Your call.
Let's try this. Well,
this is what we did last time.
we did this one last time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try this one for today and see how it goes.
All right.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss, part of Depth Worldwide here. My name is Delilah De La Rosa. I am the founder of Depth Worldwide. And to my side here is Steven Morrison. He's the creator of Spiritual Workout, as well as the author of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. What we are doing here, this is our second session in a series called Unconventional Wisdom on Grief and Loss. Basically, what we're doing here is raw, unedited, live streamed sessions on grief and loss. As I have experienced the passing transition of my mother, my beloved mother, back in November, and November 4th, exactly. And we are going into February now. I guess February 4th will be 3 months since she's passed. And last week, we kind of introduced what we're doing here, sort of a recap, a summary on all the events that had transpired the second half of last year with my mom from diagnosis. She got a diagnosis of stage 4 pancreatic cancer, spread to her liver and lungs. And 2.5 months with treatment and my brother and I caregiving, she ended up passing away in November. And throughout that time, I was definitely receiving some counseling from Steven here. The counseling based on spiritual workout. This is the practice that I've been practicing for possibly like 20 years now, or a little less perhaps, but have been working with Steven here professionally, doing spiritual workout online for the past like 5.5 years. And not only am I somebody who works with this practice, but I use this practice in my own life. And what better way, what a better opportunity to apply these practices than this experience that I'm having today with the loss of my mom.
And when Delilah said working, she was the producer and co-host of my online subscription service, meaning Delilah sat and witnessed 3.5 hours of live spiritual workout work every week for 5.5 years. So
exactly,
she's logged almost as many hours as I have, and
right,
far more than any other human.
Witnessed, walked through, and also applied
and participated.
Myself.
Yes,
participated as well as applied myself. So all the stuff, and what better way to apply this practice than this particular experience, you know,
well, and in all seriousness,
is the most challenging experience of my life. In all seriousness,
I was just going to ask, and forgive my interruption, what you think, and if you don't want to answer this now, or we'll come to it another time, what it is you think that having had this practice kind of in you when all this started to go down with your mom last summer. How how, if at all, did it color your experience as it was happening?
As it was happening, I would say that intentions matter. So, just to give folks a little bit of background here, spiritual workout is a practice that really helps us live more consciously, more intentionally. It's a way of solving life problems, big or small, big and small, whatever they are. But really to live life much more consciously, much more intentionally, which, in our opinion, generates a better life, you know. Um, and with that, we use 15 spiritual workout, universally spiritual um, principles, concepts that really guide us into living life more intentionally and consciously. And so, with that, I will say that there were plenty of concepts that I had to apply during this experience.
Yeah.
I, off the top of my head, intentions matter, very much so. Use that one. Beliefs matter was huge, huge.
Mhm.
Um, what else? The the planet belonging to we belong to the planet, not the planet belonging to us. That
Mhm.
also definitely came up.
Mhm.
Judgment separates us. That was another one. Um, those are the ones that I can think of off the top. Be compassionate, okay. But the first two, or I guess the first three, but really those first two, I really clung on to, I clung on to
Yeah.
when this all started.
Well,
Uh,
thanks for that. I didn't mean to derail you, but I was
no, no, this
the
is
point that I'm
raw and
under.
unedited, baby.
Yeah.
Raw and
Well,
unedited.
and the point that we're underscoring, and this is, this is Delilah's process here, but the practice that we're using to unconventionally move through grief and loss is exactly that, a practice. And I think the point that I wanted to underscore is that, people come in. I'm a former therapist. That's what I do now, is just an offshoot of that. So I still work with people on the same exact
Right,
issues that they talk to their therapists and friends and intimates about. And so virtually everybody who comes in that way is looking to solve something that's going on right then, for sure. And yet, uh, the truth is, Delilah is not the only one who sat through many, many hours and hours. That as we embody and put into practice these thoughts and ideas that we say we believe in, several of which Delilah just articulated, then moving through everyday life just becomes smoother and simpler and easier and
grounded.
grounded. And it just, the whole point is to move through life connected to the spiritual part of us, the being part of the human beings we are. And turns out that anybody who really does that, and we're not unique or special in the world, that anybody who really does that finds that navigating through everyday life dials anxiety way down, dials fear way down, dials guilt way down, dials shame way down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, leaving us far more available for the various life challenges that present themselves as and when they do. So
Yeah.
that's that.
And that's definitely what I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I will say that the reason why those first two came up, intentions matter, beliefs matter, is because when we received the diagnosis, I had already set the intention, or intention like, where I even said this to my brother and to my mom, but more so to my brother because my mom was, in her own space,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
taking in the news. But I told my brother, I said, no matter what they tell us here, you know, with this, in this diagnosis, no matter what they tell us, we are gonna move forward with what our mother wants, you know? So if they're speaking death sentence, okay, you take it to account. But what does our mother want? She wants to live. All right, so we're just gonna suspend, right,
Mm-hmm.
the noise from the outside and go with this intention, you know, and see what's happening here. But that actually kind of leads me to the soul work,
All
right?
right.
That you had assigned or asked me to consider. And what I'm talking about here, folks, is last week in our first session, I was telling Steven that, you know, I've been kind of going back and forth between grief and anxiety, um, as well as inspiration, motivation, and productivity. And I noticed that when I go into the grief, what makes me experience the grief and anxiety is usually when I think about the past, and specifically when I think about those 2.5 months that my mom was just not a happy camper. You know, sure, there could be, as we spoke about last week, judgment in my saying that she was suffering and struggling. But at the same time, this is what she was expressing to me directly, you know. This is what I was witnessing, as well as what she was telling me she was experiencing. And that experience leaves me very sad, you know, a very heavy weight in my chest, like heartache, you know, thinking about that. And again, conceptually, I'll know that there may be some judgment involved there. I also know that my mom was in resistance, you know, to what was happening as well, you know. And so even though her intention seemed to like, okay, I want to live, the soul seemed to have had a different agenda. Right. And so I couldn't really reconcile that. No matter how much I tried with the tools that I had, which was like tapping and going into beliefs, and not that those were, you know, ineffective completely, but they just weren't really getting to the nitty gritty, I guess, internally. And so Steven beautifully asked me to consider writing, because obviously I have this narrative that makes me feel really sad, and the narrative of her struggling and suffering to her death, okay, which I know is not what she wanted, right? I mentioned to Steven last week that I really don't like the fact that I feel like I'm accepting the fact that she has passed away. And I've accepted the fact that she passed away from cancer. However, I don't like the fact that she passed away. And I don't like the fact that she passed away the way that she did.
Right.
Right. And that these images, these memories kept coming up, you know, and I just did not know how to reconcile that. And so Steven so graciously proposed that I rewrite this narrative from my mother's soul perspective. And
then you cried.
And I cried because I was very touched, and because it resonated. It felt true, you know, and it felt like it was like an answer to a lot of things, not just in terms of how do I reconcile these images with what I believe is actually, you know, happening. And also, it really spoke to a long held intention that I had, for connecting more with the divine, you know, and this exercise is putting the focus on not just, my mother's soul's perspective, but also getting in touch with my own soul's perspective.
Yes.
Right. And so I'm giving you an update on where that's at. I definitely, my attempts to do this. And we talked about this possibly not being something that I can do this week, by this
Right.
week, because it's intense, it's
unconventional.
It's unconventional, and it's you're going beyond the mind. You're going beyond the conscious mind. And I mentioned to everyone last week that I'm a very strong-minded person. Just a very strong-minded person. And so it's like been a bit more difficult, surprisingly. Again, I know that this experience is not a linear experience, but I was surprised. It's surprisingly been a bit challenging to organize myself internally. I'm having a hard time meditating, retaining information, all of that. And so I was just like, okay, just suspend all of that. You want to connect, with the soul, so that you can connect with your mother's soul here, and in progress, I haven't reached that place where I'm like, I unmistakably, this is my mother's soul's perspective, haven't reached that. And I also feel like I haven't, because I also could not reach my own soul's perspective. The good news is that I wasn't feeling like it was curtains, like I just can't do this. I just was more feeling like it's in progress. I need to.
So that right there, let's just point out what Delilah's talking about is here she's having an experience, and so much a part of our practice, as she mentioned earlier, is how beliefs really matter. And they come into play in all kinds of different ways. In this particular case, it sounds, Delilah, like what you're saying is, so you're having an experience. It may or may not be in alignment with what you expected. And beliefs matter-wise, she's not really making it mean anything. She's not making it mean that she's a failure. She's not making it mean that this doesn't work.
This doesn't, no. Yeah.
And that's a big part of our practice in general. And that's a piece of what Delilah is applying right here, right now.
And another thing I will say is that is a positive, is that while I wasn't able to reach that level or that point of unmistakable, like, connection, this is it, like, I know this is what's happening. I wasn't able to reach that just yet. I still found solace in doing the activity. So like I would feel that heaviness in the chest, right? I would start talking to my mom, right? Like just start talking to my mom on that level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Of like attempt with that intention of connecting from our souls, right? And that was, I felt like that was something, I felt.
Did it change the feeling in your chest?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It kind of lightened it up because I felt like, I guess, spiritually productive.
So you are doing it.
Yes, that's what I said, in progress.
Yes.
It's in progress, right?
And if you had some expectation, and I know you didn't, that it had to be done by, oh my God, we've got session number 2
No,
next week.
no, I
Yeah,
knew
and
we
I know that.
touched upon that last week. You were
Yes,
like, it may not
exactly.
happen by next week.
Well, right. And it
But it
doesn't
could.
matter.
Yeah.
We don't get to say a date
How
certain,
and the
like
when,
this better
right?
happen by this time. That's just
Or
not,
the how either, right?
yeah, exactly. So I would argue that you're already doing it. I understand what you're saying, that you haven't had that moment of, oh my God, that's
Unmistakable, like,
right.
boom, I'm right there with you,
But you're
right?
doing it. So if you can feel that what you described last week as that, it was almost sounding like it was becoming chronic, right? Like, wow, this just kind of keeps happening. If you can notice that it's happening, feel it happening, offer up a different thought, idea, change the dynamic some way. Oh, I'll just talk to my mom. And then feel the relief here. That's evidence enough.
Yeah, it like neutralized it.
Yes, which is to neutralize that feeling.
It, yeah,
is pretty monumental in and of itself. That's my judgment.
That's when I felt like I was on the right track
there
here.
You go. Yes,
because it felt that way.
I concur.
So I'm just going to, as you mentioned last week, I'm going to luxuriate. Maybe I need to do a little bit more of like a date. Kind of what you mentioned in an extra year when you would light up I think you did light up the candles a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
To connect.
And let's remember that was early in my process.
Yeah.
That was him saying, this will help to just, for now. I don't do that now.
Right.
Later, but it was very helpful at the time. And a piece of that, if you remember, or if I wrote it, was literally making an appointment.
Yes.
Like just stating a time.
It was like a date. I think it was like sunset or something.
Yeah, we had an evening thing going on.
Yeah, like an evening thing going. And so I was like, maybe I should try that as well. Like just kind of so that I could feel perhaps like I have that space, that space. Cause I noticed this is where the conscious mind kind of gets in the way, is like, I'll just start feeling like not enough time, even though I have it.
Well, that's the ego part. That's just constantly,
it's trying to keep me on with my back against the wall, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I figured that, so I was like, let me just like make it like a date type of thing, like similar to what you mentioned in An Extra Year in your book that you did with with Deuter. I also, because I have like about 4 other practitioners on rotation.
Takes a village.
It does. I love it. It's a wide range of professionals, from like the woo to like what we're doing here to like a little bit more conventional therapy, although it's not the most conventional because I'm not conventional. He's like existential therapist. And I love it. I kind of glean bits of things, so what I'm doing now, and this is what I'm going to marry this date, this writing from the soul's perspective, my mother's soul's perspective. I'm going to marry that to this candling practice, right? So it's like part of that date is like the candle practice that I got from this other practitioner. I want to marry the two. I feel like that I was inspired to do that.
Well, there you go. I'm compelled. I just want to say something else here. So
please.
We did our session last week. It sort of ended with, here's a homework suggestion. You got to start somewhere. And then this is the beautiful part, because what Delilah is saying is that she's finding, just in these few days or 1 week's time of thinking in these terms. And then what happens is the more intentional we are, the more certain we are about where we're going, what we're wanting, what we want to be, do, have, the more attention that we give our intentions all day, every day, the more available we become instantly to non-physical connection, which often comes in the form of a new thought, a new idea. So this is why I'm saying, the more and more we talk, you're already doing it. You know, it's like maybe the house is up there on the hill, but you're already on the driveway driving up to it. You know, it's all, and so the combination of talking with somebody, getting an idea, taking it further, getting a new idea, the intention itself being to connect metaphysically beyond the physical.
So
And
things start coming into my
exactly. So that is, I would not have thought to tell Delilah or suggest to Delilah, well, here, look at this page on my book and what I did. Maybe this will help you. It doesn't go that way. It's coming from her with some, you know, levels, degrees of guidance, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the that's the update on the soul work. It's in progress. And
it will continue to be.
And yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up with that. There's something that I wanted to note and then a bigger thing that I really wanted to focus on and get your feedback on. So the smaller thing, because it's not going to take too long, because I feel like I know what to, I feel like I know what you're going to tell me. And I
get that a lot.
But I just wanted to make sure that maybe there's a missing piece or something else that I can add to help me feel stronger. So, you know, with death, I'm calling it like deceased, like adulting on a deceased parent level. Okay.
All right.
Meaning that I'm, you know, still going into month 3. I'm having to do some paperwork stuff, pensions and inheritance and taxes and all this stuff. Okay. So, I already knew, part of the inheritance that my brother and I would be receiving from my mom, already for like a month now, but we were still waiting to hear about her pension. Right. And so we got the news last week of how much she actually was, passing down to us. And it was like, damn, man, my mom was organized, She like did not leave us with any debt, any issues. I saw that her insurance was covering like a $315,000 charge. I may be saying too much information, but I just have to, I was like, it literally, I felt like this weight was lifted because I saw that charge and it was like pending and it was like, oh my God, but no, they're covering all of that. I mean, our mother just like passed down great things, really great things, material things, as well as non-material things. With that said, this lump sum of money that my brother and I are receiving, I before had this vision. I was like, if I were to receive a large lump sum of money, I would kill it. Like I would be like, boom, boom, boom. I'm just gonna da-da-da-da-da. Like this is like prime time Delilah, because I saw myself about a decade ago as like Miss Financial Guru. You know what I mean? Like I was like, ooh, if I just had the capital, like the actual money to work with, ooh, I would kill it right now. Okay. So now I actually am having this experience. And what the hell happens? Because I am filled with so much self-doubt, so much like I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, like I don't want to get it wrong, and I'm like, okay, what's my intention? Ask my mom for help in this as well, like integrating her into this experience, to be my good life, great life guide here, you know, my mom being like the good, like guardian angel for like a great life, right?
Yeah.
And yet I'm just really surprised that I'm feeling like this, because I've just spent so much. I dreamt of, not of this particular specific type of circumstance, but of having a large sum of money that I can play with and that I would kill. Like I was like certain 100%, no doubt, that if I had that amount of money, it's on, baby. Now that I have it, I'm like seriously, I'm so surprised by this. What is that about, Steven? And yeah.
You questioned your intention or reiterated it. Always important. I would go back to, though, here in this case right now, what is it you're believing about any of that? What's different since you've had that experience of being what I would call aligned, because you were enthused and excited and, you know, raring to go. So all that's changed, all that could have changed over this time are beliefs. So that's where the juice will be for you on this particular thing.
Perhaps over the last decade, I think that there have been some limiting beliefs that have come up with regard to my financial prowess, perhaps, you know what I mean?
So that's a dump list. Let's just list them out. I mean, we can talk about them now, or that could be part of your homework for soul work between now and next time.
I think,
that's the only thing that would have changed to this degree where you're like, wait, doesn't seem like me. Doesn't seem like the me I was 10 years ago. And the you were 10 years ago on that day at that time was fully aligned with regard to this subject.
Yeah, like I was like, you give me a chance and I'm gonna run with it, baby. And now you got that chance now. What the hell? It's just
so the fact that you already know that there's on this subject over the last decade, some things have changed or whatever. So it's just a matter of going back. To me, a dump list is, for anybody who doesn't know, it's just where we literally on a piece of paper just dump all the beliefs we have that have creeped up for Delilah over these 10 years on this subject. Because once we get the beliefs articulated and we can see them, half the time that's enough for them to just disappear. And if they still have legs and stickiness, then we use EFT and whatever and just create them.
I think that just to name a few, because I definitely want to get to this other thing that really.
Yeah, this was the small one.
This was a small one that can get big, but let's table it. I just really want to hit, because I have to make some decisions before next week.
All right.
But yeah, I definitely can see that some of the beliefs that are not serving me. One, I don't have what it takes. I can't count on myself. Cannot count on myself.
Well, that'll clog up the works.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest one, that I can't count on myself. Right? That's like the biggest one.
So
and I think the other one too is something about inability to grow, expand.
Can you put that in the form of a belief about you?
I don't have what it takes to make this money grow.
Yeah.
I don't have what it takes to create the life that I want.
Even though you've been doing that for as long as I know you.
Yeah. But I guess maybe more through the financial.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, like money.
So do you want to tell the folks what process you will go through with these beliefs?
Yeah. So it's the dump list is a way. So I have a lot of the time it's like you have your financial intentions. I have my money intentions there, right? Or whatever intentions I have for this particular experience. And anything that doesn't allow me to align with those intentions, I'll put on, like, so any beliefs, for example, that don't allow me to align with this or embody these intentions, put on the dump list.
Mhm.
So I just came up with quite a few big ones,
Yeah.
you know.
And you see when you do this that a big belief, a belief will have, I always say, brothers and
Little
sisters and
legs. Yes,
cousins. Yeah, they
yes,
have little,
yes.
a slight variation, another variation, another variation on the theme. But yeah.
I think perhaps, you know, that's just making me think like the grand, the biggest picture here is, how much of a co-creator am I? How much of a say? Goes back to that one. And then maybe also enoughness too,
Yeah.
right? There's a couple of that. Okay. So that's really like the thing. And then we can
And
tap.
then once they're identified, yeah, we use
Yes,
EFT
we can
tapping
tap it out. We can use tapping.
because the
And
basic
or use that as material to create intentions as well.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing, just if this is a new idea for anybody that's watching this, any belief we have, we have a right to have it. We've lived the life we've had. We have every right to take on, create, make conclusions about things in the form of beliefs. That is never, ever, ever the question. The only question is, can I get to where I want to go with the beliefs I have? Do these beliefs serve me? So if we find that we have some that don't serve us, I can't manage money well if I believe I don't have what it takes to manage money well, right? That's gas pedal brake
Or grow it.
stop at the same time, right? So what we do here, the dump list is a temporary way station for these beliefs. We don't ignore them. We acknowledge them. We write them down. We make sure our intention is shiny and clear. And then we go about the business of discreating the beliefs. And part two of what I wanted to say is that any belief we have, once we discover it perhaps doesn't serve us, can be changed. How do we know that? Because of another concept we work with, which is everything is energy. Everything is energy. So that belief, I don't have what it takes, I can't count on myself. Every single one of those has its own frequency vibration. It's just energy. And all that ever happens on this planet is energy changing form. So this is how we know for certain that I can't can become I can. I don't have what it takes can become I have everything I need. It takes a little work, perhaps. That's why I call it a workout. And it doesn't always take a lot of work, because when it comes to these kinds of beliefs that we see and then see they don't serve us, like I said before, sometimes for some people, depending on the situation and whatever, that's enough for it to just go. And then oftentimes people say, well, I get it. I understand fully intellectually that this doesn't serve me. I've just had it. I hear my grandmother's voice. I hear my mother's voice. I hear everybody's voices. I hear my society. And it's just really, really, really hard to undo the belief. Okay, that's fine. That's an experience. It's not impossible.
No.
And it's necessary if we want to really create what we want to create, which is what Delilah was just getting to.
So we will, I'll go into that a little bit more later on, but something that I really wanted to focus on, because I know that this is something that really brings up charge and gets me crying, is the idea of losing connection. Okay. Now, I know that with the soul work, this is part of my connecting, you know, to the soul, my as well as my mom's, right? However, you know, in this space of, you know, spiritual folks, the woo-woo folks, and how, you know, people who are very much aligned with the way our beliefs about death, passing, transitioning, right? They all, including yourself, because I read it in an extra year, all talk about yes, there is no such thing as death, right? There's physical loss of the body, but there's always something there, the being part, the soul, the spirit that continues to exist. Okay.
Well, and let's be clear that the body dies.
Yeah. The physical loss.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that there's something else there, the being part that
Yes.
continues to exist and that we can always connect to. Okay.
Yes.
That's what we all, what we believe here.
Right.
And at the same time, there's still talk of closure. And whenever that comes up, I notice that that's what gets me charged a bit. Because, so I'll give you an example from your book.
Yeah.
You mentioned how toward the end of that extra year, right?
Mm-hmm.
You knew with your partner Duder, who had passed away the year before, but you still maintained a connection or relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys knew, which made you sad too, that you couldn't continue on with the way you guys were continuing on that extra year, right?
At that level of communication.
At that level of communication.
The frequency
When I
of it.
read that, and
Yeah.
when I get this type of material from other practitioners, spiritual practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
that really speak to some type of closure or change that is associated with like closure, like that kind of a change in that connection.
Yeah.
Right. It makes me freaking sad. Because
Because you're believing what?
I'm believing that I'm losing the connection.
I'll lose the connection, right?
And you see,
Yes.
that shit
Yes.
me sad
All
as
right.
hell.
So number one,
Okay.
the intention for the connection, shiny, clear, at the ready. Okay. So that's where you go. What I described in that part of my story, as Delilah said, it was the end of a year. We'd been having, he was gone, but he wasn't gone. We were having a lot of communication.
But I felt like, why couldn't that continue on?
Well, it just didn't seem for us at the time and to serve anymore. So it was just a change. To me, I kind of view it as like an amicable breakup, with two people, sovereign beings, looking at each other saying, this has been great. It's run its course. It's going to now morph. It already morphed last year into something extremely different than we've been doing this. And now it's time for it to morph a little bit more. And it will continue to morph because that's the nature of life here on Earth.
Why did you feel that way?
I'm not so sure. It wasn't a big.
Why wouldn't it serve? This is
well,
wrong,
so
right?
all right. So
why wouldn't it serve you guys to continue that connection? And don't get me wrong, the way I was trying to perhaps rationalize it so that I could stay with like my intention of connecting with my mom and this, in this way, was that, well, Steven and his partner had a romantic relationship. So perhaps it wasn't going to serve either one of them to maintain that type of connection because it was as if they were still in that romantic relationship, right?
That's a good point. That's probably a big part of it.
So that's why I was like, so I don't have to experience that with my mom. So I don't know. Okay.
But has the relationship that you had with your mom when she was here been the exact same for all the years that you've been her daughter? From the time you were born to 2.5 months ago?
Well, no.
Right.
No.
So, and it won't stay the same. it'll stay the same in terms of the two of you and your connection, but
Okay.
how you relate to each other and how you grow and how she grows, then the relationship grows. So even though he and I did that at that time, and it was significant to me, you know, I'm 19 years out now. We're still connected as much as we ever were. Is it the exact same right now, today, these days, as it was during that first year? No. But if he were alive in his body all this time and sitting right next to me now, we would, I'm sure, say our relationship is not the exact same as when we met. Neither is yours with your husband. Neither are any of ours relationships. It's the nature of everything to expand and to grow and to evolve and to change, right? So the connection doesn't change. The connection, unless you on purpose want it to. And sometimes I don't want to speak to that. But the connection that you have with your mom on a soul level, I feel confident saying is not going to break, especially with your intention for it to take hold and continue to grow.
Yeah, because I, you know, so I read that in the book, and immediately I was like, why? Why does it have to be, you know, be like that, right? And it also made you a bit, both of you, kind of sad, you know.
It's funny as you're reminding me of this, it just, you know, inspiration wise, it just seemed like, oh, this is the next step.
Yeah.
And for me personally, because I was having so much communication with him already, you know, I was like, oh, well, it was lovely, wonderful, beautiful. I wouldn't have traded it for anything. And it held me back from, no, that's not the way to say it at all. It's just an evolution of the relationship. Yeah. It's just an evolution of the relationship. And in that regard, it wasn't like, oh, I have to break up with you, dead partner, so I can go partner with someone else. It wasn't that at all.
It wasn't like that, no. But
not at all.
But it
felt appropriate.
Yeah.
It felt appropriate. And interestingly, as I reflect on it now, I didn't ask why. Because it just came as guidance. And I just listened to the guidance.
Yeah.
And I wasn't alone in the, you know, he was in agreement.
Because when I got to that part in the book, I ended up crying because it, you know, for me, I was just like, why does it have to change? I mean, you know,
because everything always changes.
I know,
it's alive.
But just in terms of like, I guess it was also coming off the heels of like other people speaking in a similar fashion about this. Like, so one of the folks that I work with, she was saying how usually for about a year after, you know, they depart this plane, that you will be probably the closest with the departed loved ones for that year. You know, like they're the closest, you know. And when she said that again, I was like, what do you mean?
And
like
now you're counting down the months.
I was like, what do you mean the closest? Like, I want to be close to my mom like forever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want like for that to be the case. Like that this is like the closest that I'm gonna be, you know, connect with her.
It won't.
And then there was this other where I was talking with my cousin, who's also very, you know, spiritually mature, very conscious, spiritually conscious. And she, you know, when I told her about how I was really intending for me to connect with my mom's divine presence, so much so that I don't even really look at the physical loss, you know. And she was like, well, you know, your mom, you know, her tia, her aunt, needs to do her thing too, you know. Like she needs to explore her own.
Well, exactly. And that was, I didn't want to be the thing anchoring him here when he needed and to go. That was a huge part of it. Of course. That's why it was an
But do they have
amicable.
that power to anchor them here? Like,
I think it's really relationship dependent to begin with. I can't really speak for it to that. I don't believe we do, because I believe every soul is doing
yeah,
its thing, creating
sovereign.
its reality as humans, or, you know, in the non-physical. So, you know, the last thing on earth, to be compassionate, is to allow people and celebrate people being who they are and doing what, you know, that was the whole point of him leaving. It's like, oh, you have bigger fish to fry somewhere else that's more important to you than, than this and me? Well, I don't get to argue with that. That has nothing to do with me. It affects me, but I'm not in a position of power there. And I don't have it in me to try to manipulate and make it, well, no, you stay here with me because I want you to be here. Like, that's,
No,
you
that's
know.
not,
So
yeah.
it was, you know, it was just sort of an acknowledgement of, and I think we had a few of those during the year. Oh, now we're here, now we're here, now we're here. Now it's this. And so closure to me is not, there's nothing closed about his and my relationship and connection. And it changes. It's not the same today as it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and when it happened. It just isn't, nor would it be. It shouldn't be. It's, you know, nothing stays the same that way, except the love, the connection. That part just stays.
Okay.
How it expresses itself
Got it.
changes all the time.
Okay. Okay.
So I'll tell you a little story if this will help you. You know, 19 years. So there's no way it's like, you know, the first year in the book that I wrote, it's gone up and down and back around. There have been a couple of times where I'm like, where the hell are you? You should be here. You know, and other times where it's like, oh, what are you doing here? You know, I mean, it's whatever. And I think, I don't know, it had been something of a period of maybe not a lot of conscious connection.
Mm.
And whatever. And then, I don't know, I found myself at one point, I don't remember what triggered it exactly, but I had, after a period of not really having stable living situations and moving around a lot, that was it. I was just going to be parked in one place for some time. And it's back here where I live. And I was happy to be here. And I don't know, I was just sort of starting to make myself at home. And whoosh, here he was, unmistakable, like almost bowled me over in terms of his presence. You know, when it's him, it's unmistakable. I mean, it's us, you know, and it's like, there are no words for that. It's just a knowing. And this particular time, and again, this came after a period of not a lot of, for me, conscious connection. He was just here, and I had to sit down, and I sat down, and then felt even more and even more, and I was boohooing those very happy tears of like just love, 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 and just all about it. And I mean, sometimes the communication is very quick. You know, it's like a zip in. Oh, that was, thank you. Gone. You know, this time, I mean, in our clock time was probably a full 45 minutes. I would say half hour to 45 minutes of me. I noticed after a little while, I could not stop doing this. I was so full of us, our energy, our feeling, and I'm like, I'm going to put my hand, no, I could not stop. And I think that was just to help almost contain it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because it was just so huge and so massive and so real. And all kinds of communication and thoughts and ideas and things. And the point is, if we have an expectation that we must experience the connection in a certain way,
Right. You keep telling me this.
that's gonna trip us up. And I just, that's for life all the time. It's we get out of the way when we set our intentions. We don't worry about how it's all going to happen. We don't get to say when. And so it's just another version of that. And my point is that when we release our expectations that it should be this, I can't tell you how many people I have spoken to who have said, well, yeah, we used to have a hummingbird thing. And so I see hummingbirds sometimes and I know it's my husband. But I want this and I want that. And I want it to be like this. And I read in a book that it did that.
Me and rainbows. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's me and rainbows. And one of my other practitioners was just like, you see, you're putting out to the world that that's not enough.
Right.
And I'm like, but I don't know what to tell you. It's like, it just.
You do what we do when we cultivate any intention, the slightest thing. Yes. And, I'll do the typical analogy. The intention is to have $1 million in my bank account, and the person has, negative $53 in their bank account. Right. But they're intent on creating this. And so the practice insists that when that person is walking down the street and sees $1 on the street, to pick up the dollar, stop everything else. Happy, thank you, more please. And even more than that, because we know the more, so stop doing everything else and make hay out of this. Oh my God, that person might say, if they're following this practice, my intention to have $1 million in the bank is closer to manifestation than it was a nanosecond ago. I am richer than I was a nanosecond ago. I have more money now than I did when I left my house. My intention is working. My intention is in process. And just make a big deal out of it. That's part of everyday, what I call it, part of our intention setting practice. It's how we cultivate. It's how we make what we have, because law of attraction is always on, more and more. So you would take, ideally, the rainbow, say, oh my God, Mom, thank you so much. I know you're all over the place. And I know because of the rainbows, I have a way of knowing that you're here, that you're with me. And I'm going to be so grateful for that. And thank you, thank you to my guides for showing me the rainbows, because my friend was walking with me and she didn't see the rainbow at all. Right.
And these are rainbows that are not just that you see outside. I'm seeing them like in my glass of water.
Yes.
Like
yes.
In my computer when it goes to sleep, I'll see the reflection of rainbow right there.
Yes.
Like I'm seeing them all over.
And what is calling your attention to that? You think that's you and your conscious mind?
Right.
No, you're being guided. So you're already connected. You're connected. Here's the rub. You're connected and you're kind of acting like you're not connected. Average, normal for where we are. We're at session 2. But this is going to be a big part of it to really then you're opening the doors. Oh, you think rainbows are fun? Wait till you see what we're going to do next. But if you're turning your back on the rainbows
little rainbow, whatever.
I'm getting bored of these freaking rainbows already. Then all non-physical is just going to stop. It's just going to stop.
Yeah.
And still hover right there. Your mom will be right there saying, will you just stop it so I can do the next thing?
Okay.
And invite the next thing.
To be clear, I wasn't totally dismissing the rainbows, because the way that it came to me was actually right when my mom received the diagnosis. Like I was in a place where I was like, please, universe, let me know, give me a sign that things are going to be okay. And right then and there, when I was in the kitchen, which was away from the window, I had a glass of water right there. Boom, rainbow, like in the glass of water. And I was like, oh my God. And then after that, I was just able to see a bunch of different rainbows outside, inside, like just a bunch of different like, you know, in movies or whatever, like just a bunch of
Right.
different rainbows.
Right. Right.
And initially I was like, you know, very much like, oh, this is because of what that first initial experience of asking for a sign, and boom, like a second later, I got this sign, right? Or what I'm making it mean to be a sign. And so I was like, you know, rocking and rolling with that. Like, okay, you know, this is like my sign, this is my thing. And then I don't know, somewhere along the way, I started kind of like perhaps devaluing it a little bit, because I was wanting more, like that unmistakable,
Right. So that's what your intention is for. In your
yes,
intention, the connection is vibrant. The connection is always on. The
and it's
connection
unmistakable,
satisfies you. And what did you say?
unmistakable.
And it's unmistakable. So just go to that place as well. Happy,
Yeah.
thank you, more please. Yes, rainbow's great. And then right into the intention. This is such a critical part. Delilah was saying when we started, of all the concepts that we work with, beliefs and intentions were most top of mind so far in this process. That makes perfect sense. That's basically where we typically start. And so having that intention shiny and clear at the ready to be able, when you feel that tension building up, to go right into the intention, which solves that issue.
I love it.
So the choice is fear that I'll lose the connection, or investing my precious time and energy in the fear, the doubt that I will be able to maintain the connection, or investing my precious time and energy in what I want, which is ongoing connection.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying the connection closure thing, because that was the thing that was bringing up a lot of charge the last couple, since our last session.
Yeah.
I was like noting that anytime somebody brought up something that even spoke to closure, or this is the closest you're going to be to them, and it's going to
That's
have
a belief.
change, and da 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 da. And I was just kind of like I literally started like,
Because you start believing that the connection will not exist.
yeah.
And that's going to make you feel bad. When I talked about, yeah.
When you talked about,
Well, you were saying that in my telling of the story of the change, and like, okay, let's just move on to the next
like,
level
it
of
was
this.
kind of like a breakup
But
type
that sadness did not last more than an hour or two.
Okay.
That day. I remember it very clearly. It was like, oh, because the reality of the split became very real. It wasn't a split of the shift, the change in our dynamic. Yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so it's just like, you know, you climb up the mountain, you've been told there's a beautiful view. That's why you're doing it. You don't really know what it's going to be like till you get there. And then it's like, oh, all right. And that's the same with anything. So it's like, yeah, this is the right thing to do. Let's do this. We did it. And it was like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this. But that was fleeting, because it was just the immediate recognition of the shift that we had consciously made.
Okay.
And that's just us.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, I was just the way I kind of perhaps rationalized it. I was like, well, they were in a romantic relationship.
Well,
So.
and that's very true. Yeah. And also, closure to me is about when a relationship is ending.
Right.
And finding the peace within that for a person. That to me is what closure means with relationships anyway. We're not talking about ending a relationship.
No.
We're talking about extending and continuing a relationship. And so closure to me doesn't even
is not really a part of that.
It's not what we're going for.
I just really wanted to talk about this today, because I was noticing that type of talk about closure within this, death experience, transitioning, this change, really brought me to tears,
I
because
get
it was for me, meaning like losing connection, disconnecting,
right.
becoming more estranged, more distant, right? And I'm like, that's not what I'm wanting. And I spoke to my husband about it. He was like, I mean, yeah, he wasn't trying to give me the answers. He was like, I don't know, maybe that is the thing that we need to like experience, is a bit of that type of shift of that may seem like closure, or like you're losing that connection. Maybe that's part of it. And when he said that, I started bawling. Like, I was like, no, that's not what my understanding was. I thought that I would deepen my connection, and like, and I just started bawling, because I was like, this, I cannot, I want to connect with my mother with forever,
Are you still not convinced that you can be, do, or have whatever you want?
I think, again, conscious mind and on a soul level, yes, I believe this. I don't know what space this is in, but there is some doubts that come up. Obviously, sometimes I'm not even conscious of them, but
And
it's how I feel.
so that's the dump list.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like not having to say, how much of a co-creator are you?
Exactly.
You know?
So that's where I come down to. So it's like, I believe and trust I can be, do, or have whatever I want. If I'm willing to follow some mechanics, and if I'm willing to not give a whit about how it happens, and if I'm willing to let it manifest in its own time, then yeah, I can be, do, or have whatever I want. So can you, so can all of us. And not everybody believes that, even when we've been at it for a while. So that would just be another element on your dump list if it isn't already there.
Yeah. No, I will admit that this whole experience has really put me face to face with some of those lingering, lingering limiting beliefs.
So this experience that you're having is fostering your growth and development.
Of course.
Which
Absolutely.
is another part of our practice, which is that's what everything is for. We're here to have experiences that one way or another promote our growth and development on a soul level. That's why we're having it.
Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, another belief that I have that has really helped me maintain that balance, that sense of grounded and a little more empowered in this experience. Yeah, just believing that that these what I consider a very challenging experience for me, how this is going to be a vehicle for my growth.
Yes. Good.
I do believe that. I really do believe that. And I don't, like I don't have any issues with that one.
Good.
I totally knew that, I know that. But yeah, it was like that closure, connection, disconnection.
Yeah, you're not going to close the connection.
Yeah, like just the way that people were speaking about it, or what I got from, reading your experience, and having to deal with that shift with you and Duder, between you and Duder, I actually cried when I got to that part, because I was like, why does it have to change? Why can't you continue connecting? But I'm so glad that you brought up, Steven, the whole idea of like, well, when your mom was in this physical plane, didn't your relationship change throughout your lifetime with her, here? And it did. So seeing it through that lens makes a big difference for
Good.
me.
Yeah.
Makes a big, very, very big difference. So this is why we're doing this, folks. This is why we're doing this, because I'm having firsthand experience with this type of change, with my mom transitioning, and being that I've been practicing spiritual workout for so long, and applying it from for many different things in my life that I had experienced. But this is like prime time, and it's really bringing up a lot of questions that I have about co-creation, all the concepts pretty much, that are coming up: judgment, compassion, whether my intentions do really matter, beliefs really mattering, things happening for a reason, all of the things not being random, right? Or by accident. Like, all of these things are coming up for me, and putting me face to face with them in a very powerful way.
Yeah.
And with that, I have a lot of questions. So thank you so much, Steven, for helping me sort these things out,
Well, thank you for your faith and trust in this practice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And also thank you for the opportunity that I now will grab any time to help anybody who really struggles with loss, especially people whose losses occurred some time ago, some years ago, maybe a decade or two ago. As I said last week, one thing that my work has shown me unequivocally is the vast amounts of unprocessed grief that exist in our society. And so I'm always happy and willing to do anything I can do to release a little pressure out of that vat of energy.
Thank you, Steven.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is once again really, really, I was inspired to do this.
I know.
I was inspired to do it. And I'm really hoping, and from what I've seen, I see that people are getting something out of it, so I really appreciate that. Yeah, this was a totally inspired idea for me to do this with you. And I'm just so happy that we've been able to actually do it.
Thank you.
It's really easy. And Ron edited, very authentic. This is
Well,
what
that's 100% you and your willingness.
Yeah,
because you're giving people quite a gift.
Yeah,
But you're giving people quite a gift, because as somebody who works in this field, as it were, the reason that there's so much unprocessed grief in our society is people either not knowing at all what to do and or being afraid to do it. And you're not afraid to do it.
No.
And you're willing to do it publicly in service of helping others as you move along, which, let's face it, is really huge, really generous, very quote unquote new consciousness, if you ask me. And I trust you will reap much reward.
Oh, I am. I mean, just our first session, that soul work, assignment. You know, like immediately after I got off, I mean, I couldn't really look at my mother's photos without feeling verklempt, you know, that heaviness, that weight in my chest, and be like, even if it's good memories, bad memories, whatever it was, just memories, just anything just made me feel bad. But then as soon as you gave me that assignment, I could look at the photo that I had right there, you know, next to me and not feel that way. So, ding, 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 winning.
Ding, ding. Yeah.
So, yeah. So it was already like immediately effective, you know, immediately.
Good.
And it just felt right. It felt right. It just opened up this.
Well, and again, I just want to underscore, as far as I'm concerned, as I listen to, and just so anybody knows, we're not rehearsing or talking before we come on about what we're going to talk about.
No.
It's part of raw, unedited. What was I going to say?
What we're going to talk about. Yeah, raw and edited. I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway, it'll come back.
It'll come at the right time, if at all.
If it
Well,
needs to.
Yes, if it needs to. So thank you. Look, I'm seeing already little rainbows in my glass of water again. Well, thank you so much, Steven, once again. Here we are with Steven Morrison, creator of Spiritual Workout, as well as author of An Extra Year, Grief and Loss in the New Age. Getting so much out of this book. I've read it twice. First time, right when it was first published, obviously did not have the same effect that it does now that I'm right there in it with my own experience, personal experience. So I'm glad that it exists. And I'm glad that you wrote this book.
That's
Steve,
exactly why.
Definitely unconventional, which should be, in my opinion, conventional wisdom on grief and loss.
It's interesting to hear you refer to it that way, and I understand the greater context, and yet for me there's nothing remotely unconventional.
I mean,
but it is, because it is unconventional.
Conventional wisdom will have you saying that you gotta, you know, you're never gonna get over it. This was a tragedy. You know, this shouldn't have happened.
Right.
All this stuff. You got wait a year. Don't do this. Time will heal.
Don't make any big decisions.
Yeah, time will heal. You know, and some things.
5 stages.
5 stages. You're gonna have to go through it. You know, this is the timeline. This is what you can expect. You know, and sometimes they do align with those things. You know, sometimes some things do align with that.
I'm not here to demean other approaches,
but I just don't make it like the rule. You know what I mean? It's not the rule. It's just a belief. It's an experience, one experience that you can have, you know, with that. So really appreciate it, Steven. Thank you so much. Thank you once again for the clarity on the closure connection thing, because that was definitely tripping me up. So yes, thank you for today's session, everyone. We will be back next week. Same time, same place, YouTube, live stream, raw, unedited, different link, right at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for 1 hour and change. We went over a little bit. But yeah, this is raw and edited, unconventional wisdom on grief and loss. And I hope you join us next week. Anything you'd like to add, Steven?
No, thank you.
Thank you once again, Steven. You are a blessing.
Takes one to know one, and thank you.
I like that. All right, everyone. We will hope to see you next week.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Until then.
Until then.